What's cooler than that?
It's great to have you back now, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's been too long. So, a couple of the things that you have mentioned that I want to cover before we get into some of the other stuff is some of the things that are going on in our town.
Mm-hmm.
There's an attempt. I don't know if this is like a North Dakota thing or not, but is there an attempt to eliminate property taxes in our...
Yes.
Is it a county thing? Is it a...
No, it's a state.
Okay.
Statewide deal. It's pretty interesting, actually. You know, I hate to... when you're in politics, and I've said this before, I hate to call myself a politician, but... because I'm not. You really try not to take a stance on things like that. You try to focus more on, educating people. As a law enforcement officer, if I tell you not to do something, you're probably going to want to do, you give the obstinate kid syndrome. But with these property tax referendums, so basically what they're trying to accomplish is obviously eliminating all of the property taxes, which is schools, services, public services, things like that, would all be paid by the state of North Dakota. So I can see how that might be enticing to homeowners and business owners, but I'll tell you this, when very wealthy people in our community that own a bunch of property and are going to benefit from this greatly say it's a terrible idea, I think that should give you pause, because rich people like to be richer, and when they say something stupid, I think maybe we should listen up a little bit when it's just going to benefit them. So I'm also, where I struggle with this, I'm friends with the gentleman that is spearheading this in Bismarck. His name is Rick Becker. He was a representative in that area for several years. Very great man. He's done some great things for our state. I don't know that I agree with him on this one, but the problem being, I think it's going to be a couple of fears I have, I guess. I think it's going to get abused. So now we basically turn our budget into the state, say, here, this is what we need. They write us a check for X amount of dollars. So wouldn't that go to figure, be it this year, next year, 5 years from now, we're going to say, well, we need this much, So we turn in a higher budget knowing that we don't have to pay for it. The state pays for it, excuse me. But I see more waste coming out of this than we already have. So that's a fear of mine. And number two, so when people come to our county commission for, just using our county commission as an example, projects in our area, like Friendship Park, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that new park out by the interstate there. That's primarily for disabled children, but everybody uses it, can use it. It's a gorgeous new park in our area. They were able to come to the commission, ask for dollars to help support that cause. And the commission, of course, we have some very good commissioners, and they did support that project. Well, if we don't have any property tax, we don't have any money to do anything like that. So people can come to the commission all they want and ask for projects in our community. Well, there's no money here. It's all coming from the state. And Stark County itself does not have a sales tax. The city of Dickinson has a sales tax, but Stark County itself does not have a sales tax. So that means our county would have $0 essentially to do anything with. And, there's always some forms of funding coming in, but it would be very minuscule in the grand scheme of things. So that's my other concern, I guess. So I'm very much about local control.
Yeah.
What troubles me is a lot of the people who are pushing this are the ones that complain about the legislature and how much they spend and what kind of idiots they are in Bismarck. Well, now you're giving them total control of our communities, and if you don't trust them in the first place, then why are you giving them?
Do we trust them?
I've got a lot of friends in the legislature, so I'm not going to say much about that. But certainly there's some I don't, and more that I do.
But they're elected officials, right? So people are electing them into those spots. So.
Yeah. Well, and the other, another thing that ticked me off, and it's kind of the same groups that are pushing this, is I'm sorry, I got the cough now.
Jinxed ya. We got yeah. Okay.
The same groups that are pushing this term limits, if you guys remember that was on the ballot a couple years ago, or a year ago. And that basically said you can only run 2 terms in the North Dakota legislature, and I think governor too as well. And then you're out. Well, that's a lot of experience that's out the door. By the time you get in there and learn what you're doing, you're done in 8 years. And the thing that ticks me off more about that is you just took away my right to vote for somebody. The most sacred thing we have.
Right.
If I want to vote for somebody 10 times until they're 80 years old or whatever, that's my right. Well, now it was. Now you took that away. So I think we're doing some things as a society that are really very troubling, and I think the slope's getting really slippery and dangerous.
Boy, you've got a house, right, Errol?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about this property tax thing?
Well, of course, in theory, it sounds good, right? Like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have to pay property taxes. But at the same time, like you said, the money thing, yeah. I mean, if it's getting spent somewhere, yeah, it sucks if you lose money towards things you'd want to happen in your community, I suppose.
Right, and you're going to pay it somewhere else.
Yeah,
I mean,
they'll raise the.
They're gonna get
you
us.
somehow.
For sure, they would get the money. I wonder where they would make that up at necessarily.
Yeah, state sales tax would go up, I'm sure. I don't know.
So right now, this is something they're in the process of doing this right now.
Yeah, so this would be on the ballot. If they get enough signatures, it'll be on the ballot next November.
And it's not something that we personally go and vote on, or is it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so there you go.
Everyone in the state of North Dakota that's eligible to vote would have the.
I wonder how many people actually even know about this. Is it
quite
something that
it's quite a few? Yeah,
is
it's pretty big movement. I think there's a lot of opposition to it now, but like I said, there's good things and bad things. But
Yeah.
I'm not sold. But.
Right. I know home ownership is one of the things just with normal people that's just becoming a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
People, mostly young people, even older people, it seems like it's incredibly hard to just a lot of people are renting. Everything's like housing is getting bought up by bigger corporations, and then they're turning it into like Airbnb. I don't know how much of that is going on in Dickinson or not.
There's quite a few of those things popping up too. But even if you're renting, you're paying property tax.
For sure.
Right? And a lot of the major part, and here's kind of my theory on this, the major part of our property taxes are schools, right? By far. And I think it's somewhere in the 70 percentile. Don't quote me on that. But, and now we have this new school bond that they'll be voting on next Tuesday. And I'm one of those that believes 100% we need a new school. That high school is junk, for the lack of a better term. It's not conducive to learning. It's built on a pod system. I don't know if you guys have ever been to high school here, but it's horrible. Mechanically it's devastated. So they're gonna, whether we vote yes or no on that, we're gonna be paying about the same amount of money because we have to spend so much to overhaul the place mechanically and whatnot. But with this bond issue comes not only the overhaul of the high school, which they're doing a lot more responsibly at this point. They're looking at $69 million this time. When the first vote came around, which was 6 years ago or something, they were looking at upwards of $180 million or something like that. So I respect the fact that they're being much more responsible with it now. And not only is it updates to the high school, but they're going to update the security measures in all our schools in the Dickinson public schools. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's needed. I hope they pass. It has to pass by 60%, which is very difficult to do. But where I'm kind of leaning towards is I think the state should pay for all of that. I think if the state would absorb all the school costs of all our communities, our property taxes would drop by a ton just by doing that. And I think it's a good compromise for people. Keep paying our property taxes, which would be exponentially lower, But that's going to cover your public services and
Why
things we're doing
wouldn't
here.
the state pay for that?
It's a big bill.
My curiosity, I got a question if you know anything about it, like the legacy fund stuff, right, for the state. Now, like, wouldn't that be a good place for that kind of money to go into? Because like they gave money for like a bunch of money a while ago to like the Peace Gardens, right? Where I feel like I think most people would be more happy where we're going to the school versus something like that.
So the budget for this last biennium was $19.6 billion. So yeah, so they spent a lot of money in a lot of different places, and I realize that's a huge number, and that people gasp when they hear that, and rightfully so. But you guys have been around, you know. North Dakota is beautiful. It's well kept. Our roads are good. Our services are good. I'm all about spending money if you're spending it in the right places, and a lot of that is happening in our state to the legislature's credit. But also there is a lot of frivolous stuff being spent on. So that's why I'd like to see the schools come out of that and stop the spending in things like you just said, where I think, you know, especially when it comes to supplementing private industry, and that has happened in the last couple sessions, and I think that just needs to stop completely. It's crazy.
Yeah, man, that's a lot to think about. Coming from my own personal opinions, the reason why I asked earlier, you know, how many people you think know about this, is because I know just from being, now that I'm getting older, you know, I'm kind of starting to learn a little more.
Pay attention a little
Well, yeah, you start to pay attention more because you feel like it's affecting you, and you feel like, I don't know, you're just getting older. It's time to be a little more responsible. It's time to pay attention to you start to care, I guess I should say. But just younger people, you know, the majority of younger people, they just don't care about stuff like this. So that's why I was asking how many people know about it, and how are they getting that information? If it's like the local news, you know, or the newspaper, you know, stuff like this, like how are they finding out?
I think you'll see a big, like I said, it's early yet, and they're just working on the signatures, and that's more face-to-face stuff. So I think a lot of that is being done, but you'll see a big push when it gets closer. You know, a lot of information will get spread out. Unfortunately, with information comes misinformation, and it'll be interesting. So
It's true.
yeah.
So we on BTG Squad often get into conspiracy theories, and it's coming up on the what is it?
60th.
60th anniversary. Now
You
you
got
jinxed
this.
me.
Now
Now
you
you
got it, man.
jinxed me. It's coming up on the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination. This is something that I did not know too much about. Once again, one of those things where it's like, you know, I was such a young, I can't even say I'm a young guy anymore. I'm 31 now, but for a long period of my life, you know, history has never been my thing. I didn't, unless it was like, for instance, 9/11, right? For some reason, I'm incredibly interested in what happened in 9/11. And I don't trust the government at all.
How old were you?
During 9/11, 2000 and
One.
shoot, man. How old was I?
I was a junior in high school. I was in my art class, I remember.
Yeah, I was very young. What was that? How many years ago was 2001?
22 years ago.
22 years ago. Jesus Christ, dude.
9 years old, huh?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
We were just moving, I think, to the state of North Dakota when that happened.
Well,
man.
that's probably why that resonates with you so much. You were at that age where you could understand it, but maybe not totally. What was the impact of it?
I wonder, have you ever watched the documentary 9/11, The New Pearl Harbor?
No.
I've told him to watch it a couple of times, and I don't think he ever
I'll be
has.
honest, I haven't watched it yet.
It's like a 4-hour documentary on YouTube. I think it's 4 hours long. But oh my God, man. They go into some of the crazy, they go super in depth on how, you know, you hear people say steel couldn't melt at certain temperatures.
Yeah,
and
you
there's
gotta be
footage.
careful with some of that stuff you're watching.
I know, but hey, if you watch that documentary, it's so hard to refute a lot of the points that they're making. You know, how phone calls from certain people, how cell systems were not in place, cell towers and whatnot were not in place back then for these people to be making phone calls in the sky like they were doing, certain phone calls that were recorded, just weird things. Obviously, there's superstitions and stuff, but just before we get into this JFK thing, because I do want to talk about that,
Sure.
just tell me, either one of you, how do two buildings collapse like that? How did the other one come down out of nowhere? And then some of the footage about the plane that hit the Pentagon and how the footage was all...
I question that one a little bit more than the actual towers. I think the Pentagon one, there is a lot more theories flying around about that one, what actually went on there, and it's a little more fishy if you watch the video on that. But the towers, I don't know.
Have you ever seen a controlled demolition?
Yes, I have.
Have you?
Yes. But the conspiracy
It's
behind that,
eerily
right? It wasn't
similar.
even the building, right? That
It
they
is,
wanted
but
to take out.
but when you look at those, especially when that second plane hit, that was a lot of damage.
I mean, there's
that-
people jumping out windows, man.
Yeah.
I know, and I want to be very...
And
I want
that's
to
something
be...
to laugh about, but I'm saying,
Right.
like, they show video. I mean, there's people like jumping out of the building.
Well, yeah, and that's why this is so much more of a serious thing, right? And it's not something to be taken lightly. It's just so many questions that are unanswered about that. I encourage anybody, please go watch that documentary.
Sure.
YouTube, I can't believe YouTube left it up. Maybe they think that we're that stupid. Whoever watches it, they're like, oh, if you believe this, whatever, we'll just leave it up, right? We don't care. Usually, YouTube will take things like that down.
Yeah.
But please explain to me how two buildings like that collapsed.
Well,
They were
when there's that much weight collapsing down on itself, and it's very understandable how the floors above the planes collapsed, right? That makes perfect sense. I think we can all agree on that. And we're talking about jet fuel, which is insanely hot stuff. But those planes hit, they do all that extreme damage in the center, especially, like I said, that second hit was a direct smack. You got all that heat and stuff going on, and it collapses on itself while all that weight coming down on top of the rest of the building.
See,
But
this
that's
is-
when you talk about a controlled demolition, that's how a controlled demolition is done. So,
right, and in a lot of the videos, you can see explosions as it's coming down.
Yeah.
Right? You can see little.
I think that's air coming out of the floors.
I think,
but
dude, I want to agree with you. I really do. For respect for all the men and women that have served this country and went over to the Middle East and died for the past 20 years, I always approach this subject with incredible respect when I'm talking about this. But, I mean, to watch that documentary and to come out of it thinking that George Bush was innocent and to think...
the Bush family is probably the most criminal family we have ever had in the White House. And more so Dad than George W.
Right.
George Sr. was much worse, and he was actually a part of this JFK assassination. He's with the CIA at that time. But yeah, so he goes,
Really?
and I understand the questions people have with 9/11, and I think it all kind of starts with the JFK assassination. That's when our country was the most corrupt it's ever been. And everything since then has been questions and reasons for that.
Do you think LBJ
Yes,
had something to do with
100%.
this? So, his LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, we're talking about, right? The guy that took over after Kennedy was assassinated. And I watched that documentary that you sent. I believe it was the day before the assassination. He was in a room with his mistress. And I forget
His
her
mistress,
name.
not just his mistress, but a gentleman named Clint Murkison, who was a billionaire oil tycoon down in Texas, who had very much to lose by JFK staying in office. The director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, was in that room.
Right.
There's also questions as to whether or not Alan Dulles was there. I don't believe he was. And Alan Dulles is the former head of the CIA that JFK removed, who, interestingly enough, became the head of the Warren Commission, which is the commission that investigated the assassination. Why is the head of the Warren Commission the man that JFK removed from the CIA?
Yeah,
Years
and
before.
the
Okay.
Warren Commission, they conveniently ignored a lot of facts, right?
Well, they did, and I don't believe in coincidences in law enforcement. And when I really got into this, just to explain kind of how I came upon this, I've had 3 shoulder surgeries. I don't know if you guys have ever been a part of anything like that, but for the first week, you're completely worthless and useless to the world. So you kind of sit in a chair and try to decide what you're going to do with your life. And
What
I
was
told
it?
myself before that surgery, my first shoulder surgery, I've had 3 from fighting with dogs my entire career.
Okay.
But I told myself, and this is kind of stupid, but I'm going to figure out who killed JFK. That's what I'm going to do with
Wow.
after my first surgery. And I mean, hours and hours and hours. And when I say you got to be careful about what you watch, I'm a fact checker. And okay, like that's BS. That's not true. You know. And if that's in a documentary that you're watching, then you have to be very suspect of that whole documentary, because
Right.
somebody is putting this together and not doing their homework or whatever. But you know, the one I sent you about this, I've found to be pretty historically accurate. Where you have questions is like LBJ's mistress saying, you know, and she has no reason to lie, and she has a child of his, which is documented and true. You know, he told her that night, those effing Kennedys are never going to embarrass me again. And you look back, and you brought up Lyndon Johnson, you look back on him, he is a bad dude. He is a bad dude, and he is responsible for a lot of people not being around anymore. And people have a hard time believing that. But if you do your homework and you learn about people like Malcolm Wallace, who was an assassin, you know, responsible and convicted for murders in Texas, he probably was also in charge of the murder of Lyndon Johnson's sister, who was also killed.
She had a big mouth, though.
She did
to
have
be
a big
honest.
mouth. She was very
She had to go.
promiscuous. She was a drug addict, so she was nothing but trouble for him. And mysteriously, she dies, just like everybody else that crossed Lyndon Johnson over the years.
Right.
So, this, you know, what's interesting about this Malcolm Wallace, he is convicted for the murder of a golf course owner who was also speaking out against Lyndon Johnson, and was messing around with his sister at that time. Goes to trial, 10-day trial. He is found guilty of murdering this guy. 5 years suspended sentence for murder. In 1950s, that was not a thing. Like, you killed somebody, it was, you know, there was no 5-year suspended sentence. So he was represented by a Lyndon Johnson attorney, or an attorney known to work for Lyndon Johnson. So, you know, like I said, there's so many things that you look at. It's just amazing. And to boot, this was also found out in the early 2000s. There was a fingerprint in the sniper's nest in the school book depository that they found shortly after the assassination. They could not tie that fingerprint to anybody. So years and years later, they find that this fingerprint belonged to Malcolm Wallace.
No kidding. I did
So
not.
what in the holy hell is Malcolm Wallace doing in the school book depository where Lee Harvey Oswald was supposedly at
Right.
for this assassination? So, I mean, that alone is like, wow. And what's even funnier about that is, you know, there's video of a gentleman that worked for one of the agencies in Texas. I can't remember if it was the Dallas Police Department or whatever. He's the one that matched that fingerprint, and he said 100%, no doubt that was a match. It was a 31-point match, which is like ridiculous. And it was turned over to the Secret Service. They said, no, it's not a match, and it disappeared.
So Lee Harvey Oswald, wasn't he? He had ties to Russia, correct?
Cuba, right?
I thought it was Russia
Cuba
and
Russia.
Cuba, right?
Both. So Lee Harvey Oswald was a what they called a double agent back then. So he was sent over to Russia and did some work over there. Turns out the Russians knew what he was doing, so he ended up, I don't know how he didn't end up dead, but he got sent back to the United States. Ended up in Texas, in Dallas there, and working for a gentleman named, his name escapes me here now, but doing anti-Cuba propaganda, things like that. What's interesting about Lee Harvey Oswald, and some people say there was 2 Lee Harvey Oswalds, and some people say there was up to 15. That's one of those one of those statements I think is completely false. But factually, there was 2, and the second one was in the weeks leading up to the assassination. This is documented as well. Was going around causing trouble. Like he would go on the shooting range and he would shoot your target and then start a fight with you and really run in his mouth because they wanted people to start talking about Lee Harvey Oswald what a nut he is. Well, that wasn't the Lee Harvey Oswald we know. That was the one being, in my opinion, instituted by the CIA at that time.
Was he like a lookalike guy? Or?
Yeah, they did look similar, and yeah.
Just kind of off topic, did you see that video of Joe Biden just recently? He was doing some kind of press conference about the Israel-Gaza conflict, and he came out looking, I don't know, everybody's saying it's a body double, and the guy's got a mask on, but he came out with this weird-looking
chin, right?
The weird chin. His chin looked...
Something was up with that.
His chin looked nothing like Joe Biden's face all of a sudden.
Really?
Yeah, he came out with this just weird. It looked like someone had a suit on, and they just didn't quite get the mask all the way down. I don't know. That's a weird one, but it was true. Like I've seen Joe Biden. His chin doesn't look like that normally. His chin was he had 2 weird points. They looked like little devil horns coming out of his face. He looked like he had, Peter Griffin from Family Guy. He looked like he had those balls.
Some would argue that Joe Biden is the devil, but...
I thought Obama was the devil. I thought he was the Antichrist. Only because of when he was elected, the whole country went crazy, right? He's this Muslim guy. He's got to be Antichrist, right? He's whatever. But back to this. I knew nothing about this Lee Harvey Oswald. And you said up to 13 maybe, probably 2.
Yeah.
For sure.
2 are documented for sure, but people think there was others running around trying to get the name out there and portray him as a nut job, wacko, extremist.
And that's interesting because was it the Warren Commission that tried to say that the one shot hit like...
The magic bullet.
Yeah, it hit like 7... What did it do? It took this crazy trajectory that's impossible.
Correct. It did a lot of interesting things, and more troubling than that, the bullet that was portrayed as that bullet was pristine. They call it the pristine bullet.
Right.
Again, not a thing. Obviously we spend a lot of time out on the range and doing different things, and
maybe it was a defective bullet.
Yeah.
It was a super solid.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, how could a bullet travel? And then there's footage. Who's the I watched a documentary on ABC, right? They did a documentary called JFK Solved, JFK Unsolved, and then it was called like The Real Conspiracies or something like this, right? But there was a guy in that documentary by the name of Josiah Thompson, and he did a ton of research. Like he dedicated pretty much the rest of his life. He was the guy who was in like the first evolution of the Navy SEALs in the Navy. He joined in the Navy when he was really young. He was a Navy diver. He got out. He watched this. He became like a professor, and he ended up watching the JFK assassination, and he just poured his life into researching this, right? And he did some incredible footage. But some of the stuff he was talking about, the Zapruder, is it the Zapruder film?
Abraham Zapruder, yeah.
Yeah, the guy that actually filmed this assassination and got some crazy clear footage. He was saying, as they were going through this, I was watching the video of him talking about it, and he was saying the Warren Commission took the footage, the clear Zapruder footage of the assassination, because everybody argues, oh, his head, he went back and to the left or whatever, right? But there was a frame that they apparently took, and they messed with it and reversed it so it looked like his head went forward, so they could, I guess, make up this theory that he had only gotten shot from behind and there was no grassy knoll involved.
And I've heard that theory, and there's so much against that, and you dive deep down this rabbit hole, and you go look at interviews that were held with the doctors that were in the room, and his head when he gets back to Washington is nothing. The pictures you see there are nothing like what they saw in the emergency room that day, and
That's wild.
Yeah, his brain's missing.
They couldn't find it, right, or something.
His brain goes missing. All this evidence goes missing. They said it's just nonstop. People that were credible witnesses that day die.
Some Hillary Clinton stuff going on.
Well, it's very clear we're dealing with the CIA. This is how the CIA operated back then. And there was a woman, I always forget her last name, but her name's Dorothy. She was a reporter. Was supposedly touting that she was going to blow the lid off the Kennedy assassination.
And she died too.
Yeah. And this was again in the 60s at some point. They find her in her house. Whoever killed her really screwed this up. They find her in a guest bed that she never slept in. They find her with all her makeup on. Women don't typically go to bed with their makeup on, with their face on, right? She had a book on her chest that she had already read, and friends knew that she had already read it. She always wore glasses when she read. She put no glasses in the room. Just a myriad of things with her dad. She had barbiturates and things in her system that she wasn't known to take. And
can I pause you right there?
Yeah.
All this stuff you're pointing out, right? You're to anyone listening, you're thinking, oh, this is a setup. She was obviously killed, and someone. It's pretty obvious that's not what happened, right? The way they found her in the original story and all this. That's exactly how I feel about 9/11.
Yeah, I can't say it's not, but
how many people do you know who served?
Lots
Of guys. Yeah. So yeah, obviously you have to have a different perspective of this than I do. Mm-hmm. I know a few people who have served, but it's just. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No. But the way you were explaining this story about this woman, and it's like, oh, we're all just supposed to believe, oh, she was just reading. She had no glasses. Mm-hmm. She's in a different room. She's all these weird circumstances, these Jeffrey Epstein circumstances, and she's dead now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is the story. This is what happened. Yeah.
And there's so many instances like that with this case. And people randomly dying of weird causes, and it's too, like I said, coincidences are, sure one or two, but not all of these, and all of these people involved, and too many people had too much to benefit. What really tied it home for me with Lyndon Johnson, especially Bobby Kennedy, who would have been the best president we ever had, by the way, had he not been assassinated, but also by the CIA, in my opinion. Because had he gotten elected, he would have blown this thing out of the water, too. I mean, you damn well know he would have figured out who killed his brother, and a lot of people would have went to prison. Very influential people. But anyway, Lyndon Johnson was looking at, in the 1964 election, was going to get dropped off the ticket. So JFK was not going to choose him as his running mate, not just because he didn't like him, which they hated each other. And Lyndon really hated Bobby, because initially Bobby told JFK, you're signing your death warrant by making him your vice president.
Jesus.
So him and Lyndon always butted heads, but they were investigating Lyndon criminally for some of the stuff that happened back in Texas. And if you ever get a chance to look at Box 13, was really Lyndon Johnson's first real corrupt move, unless he killed somebody before then. I don't know. That was back in 1948. There was a election which catapulted him to the Senate, but he was behind in the polls, and this by a very close margin. And this small, I can't remember the name of the city in Texas. Anyway, this was
wasn't it like Johnson City?
No, it wasn't Johnson City.
Or is that where he was from? Something like that.
Yeah.
They brought up a town. I was like, that's odd that it's his name also.
No. But the ballot box comes in with 200 votes for Lyndon Johnson and 1 vote for his competitor, and Lyndon Johnson wins the election. But so they were investigating him for some corrupt business practices and maybe Box 13 as well. But so Johnson was not only looking at getting dropped off the ticket, he was looking at criminal charges as well. Obviously, he becomes president, and that all goes away.
Strange.
Along with another man named Celestes, who would have also gone to prison for corrupt business practices along with him. So,
do we think that Jack Ruby was just, because his story was, he just didn't want Mrs. Kennedy to have to come back to Dallas to deal with all this nonsense. That's why I shot him, right?
What you have with Jack Ruby had clear and obvious ties to the mafia. The CIA used the mafia very often. They used them in the Cuba, the Bay of Pigs, prior to the Bay of Pigs. They used some mafia resources for that. And they often used the mafia to do things in other countries, accomplish their goals. So there were ties between the two organizations, and that, I think, spun into Ruby. And then, Lee Harvey Oswald had to go. He was talking. He was singing like a canary, and the plan all along was to get rid of him, I have no doubt.
I'm sure, yeah. You can't let that one go.
Mm-hmm.
And no one knows. We still don't know, right, who the second shooter was behind the fence on the grassy knoll. Right. Nobody knows.
And I wouldn't even say second shooter. Lee Harvey Oswald never had a gun in his hand that day.
You think it was...
He tested negative for gunpowder residue on his hands and arms. No fingerprints on that rifle.
So it was the fingerprint on the bullet. It was...
The fingerprint was... Malcolm Wallace's fingerprint was on a box.
You think it was him?
I think it was him. Upstairs in that room, yes. Did he have any shots that hit? I don't know. I think the kill shot obviously comes from the grassy knoll, but they claim a triangulation of shooters is the popular belief, which is very common in
Put them in a box, right?
CIA assassination stuff, is either 4 or 3 shooters.
So we don't know who 3 shooters are.
Mm-hmm.
We only ever pinned it on
one guy,
Harvey Lee.
Mm-hmm.
That's awfully convenient.
But so we have testimony from workers in the school book depository that say Lee Harvey Oswald was in the break room drinking a Coke when President Kennedy drove by.
Right.
There was a lady, again, I forget her name. She's a pregnant gal. She had to go to the bathroom every 30 minutes because she was having some sort of medical problem. I suppose the baby is pushing on her bladder or something. I don't know. But she was constantly going back and forth, and she was one of the ones that testified that he was, when I walked by, he was right there taking a sip of a Coke. So he would have had to run down several flights of stairs, run in the break room, stop, act like he's drinking. He's not going to stand around and drink a Coke if he just shot the president.
Right. And they've obviously eliminated the fact that rifle he was using, you can't.
I've heard different, that's where you have to kind of delineate some of the garbage, so to speak. I have seen tests where they were able to fire that off in the time that they allotted. So it is possible.
But barely, right?
To do it accurately is the question. And
right.
Through the tree, that he, at one of those shots had to have gone through the tree to, not the actual tree trunk, but the...
Right. And one of them would have had to go past him and curve around and come back and hit him right in his head.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of weird. So I think I think just recently, didn't we go through this phase where they were releasing a bunch of the JFK files, but they've only released, I think there's still what is it, 30% of the files are still sealed?
Yeah, there's a decent amount, which you're not going to find anything. Everything that was anything is probably destroyed. However, I find this very interesting as well. Donald Trump is probably the most arrogant asshole on the face of the planet. And don't get me wrong, I like his foreign policy was amazing. That's why the world's blowing up right now, is because we are weaklings because of our president and his organization are complete losers on foreign policy, and we're seeing that. But when Trump was in office, you didn't see that for a reason. And he may have screwed up a lot of other places, but his foreign policy was top notch, really was. But he made it very clear he was going to open up this whole JFK thing when he was in office, and he started to, but then all of a sudden stopped, and he was questioned on that. I think he had 2 weeks left in office, and somebody had approached him and said, hey, what's the deal? You got 2 weeks left. Are you going to get this out to us? And he made the comment, and this is a brash man with balls the size of bowling balls, He said something to the effect of, if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't release those either.
Oh, God.
And he was scared.
Jesus.
He made the comment he was scared to open it up. So, and this is a man that's completely arrogant and, so.
So let's say the files were released. And let's say the files all say it was Lyndon B. Johnson, it was the FBI, it was the CIA. It's almost to me just like the whole, when they say we can't release all of the UFO stuff because we think the world's going to freak out and everybody's going to riot and they're going to lose their minds, right? Realistically, what would you be afraid of?
Well, I don't really.
From the public, this.
There would be some backlash, but it's gotten to 60 years ago.
Right.
It is what it is at this point. But I think people are going to be extremely troubled that the government or government agencies, including the FBI and CIA and the man that became president, were all involved in this. And I think that's clear as can be if you do the research and you take the time to, hundreds and hundreds of hours into this. And it's just clear. It really is. And if people see that our government is capable of doing such a thing, they're going to question.
Yeah.
Like you questioning 9/11. Now all of a sudden.
They're going to question anything they do.
Yeah.
Right. So the three people that are left on this planet that have faith in the FBI and the CIA, they're going to lose those three people, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about those organizations? I was watching an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy, and he was one of the things that he's running on right now is that as soon as he gets in office, or if he gets in office, he's going to do away with the FBI immediately, right? There's all these, he's got some radical opinions.
Well, I
He's
don't
going to
necessarily
break it down, right? Like
He said
he's going to fire a bunch of
dismantle
people,
it.
basically, because there's too many people with too many jobs, basically.
Dude, he said, I'm going to get
think.
rid of the FBI. I mean,
I think
fact
getting
check
rid
me
of
on
the-
that.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I think getting rid of the FBI could be disastrous, but certainly an overhaul maybe is needed. I don't know that.
Didn't
much
Trump
about
try to
that.
do that? Didn't seem to work out too
No,
well.
but again, looking back, and I hate to keep going back to this, but that was one of the things JFK did. He actually wrote a I forget what they call it, but anyway, it was a presidential order, which when Johnson took over, he tore it up. But it was basically a dismantling of the CIA. It Truman developed the CIA back in the 40s, I believe. And it was sole purpose was intelligence. It wasn't supposed to get involved in being out and assassinating leaders in other countries, and just it went completely rogue. And JFK said, enough is enough, and that's why he got rid of Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA, which ended up being the head of the Warren Commission, because Dulles was fighting him, and it was a bad deal. So he implemented or instituted somebody he thought would do better with the position and do what he intended the CIA to do, which was just intelligence. So
Right.
basically taking away their power and their structure. And after that, it never got done. And maybe that's what Mr. I can't say his name.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Vivek is looking at doing too, because the CIA has really been. I think it's obviously not what it was 60 years ago. It was
Right.
way out of control, but it's still troubling. I think some of the things they get involved in.
Yeah.
Interesting thing is too, right? You said 60. What do you think about another Kennedy running for president?
It's a great question.
Yeah, right. Since it's the 60th.
I was going to ask him that. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about what is it, Robert Kennedy, right?
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Junior. Again, it's just hard for me because I'm such a huge fan of his dad, and again, I think the 1968 election would have went to Robert Kennedy, and I think he again would have been the best president we ever had, and we wouldn't have had Richard Nixon then, which would have been fantastic. But Junior doesn't have what Senior did. You know, he's a different cat. He's very much into the conspiracies, so he's interesting in that way. And how could he not be when his dad and his uncle were killed in the way they were? But no, he's not going to get it. Number one, and number two, he's just going to take votes away from the Republicans. So just for that reason, I don't like him. But otherwise, I do like some of his theories and thoughts, and I think he's a interesting cat. I think he's doing great in the position he's in, but as president, I'm not buying it. But.
It's funny how you say he's not going to make it, and you're right, because it's weird how they can shut like his videos.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's doing stuff right now. I know he's trying to promote himself. I don't know if is he even still trying to run? I don't know.
He's going to run as an independent.
Right.
Like, yeah.
So I know he's still doing things and he's still trying, and he even got on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan had an entire episode with him that I watched, which was great. It was really eye-opening for me. I think at that time he was running as a Democrat.
And I think and this is very vain and it's just sucks, but it's our world. He's very hard to listen to. His voice, he's got that problem with his voice box, and
he does.
It's really hard to follow him and listen to him, and as a politician, that's not gonna work for you.
No. So. It took me, I don't know.
Well, Biden ain't doing a whole lot better.
No, he's not. No. Well, that's why he's where he's at.
Yeah, I think that episode with Joe Rogan was it was probably 3 hours long, and it took me maybe 2.5 of those hours or 2 hours to where you forget that his voice sounds that way, and you're just constantly listening to him, and then he almost sounded normal by the end of it, and I was like, oh. But yeah, at the beginning of that, I just wanted to scrape out my eyeballs listening to him talk, and like you said, it's unfortunate because we live in a world where people are going to judge him on his voice right now. They're not
not his policies.
No, nobody's. They listen to his voice and they say, "I'm not voting for that guy." Yeah. And I have to admit, I was one of those people at the beginning before I actually listened to the podcast with him. I was one of those people where it was like, "Dude, we can't have this guy giving speeches and addressing the nation, and I have no confidence in him, right? But it's like, well, look at what we have for president right now. Mm-hmm. We're not doing a whole lot better. But someone told me, I forget who it was, but somebody just recently told me, oh, they slapped a felony on Trump. This have you seen this judge that Trump is going to? Oh man, this guy, I just want to choke this dude. He's got a face that's really, I don't know what
his face is like Robert Kennedy's voice.
Oh my God, man, it's horrible. I don't know, and I haven't done any research on this judge. Right, I've seen news headlines and clips and whatever else, but someone told me, I don't remember who it was, but he said they gave Trump a felony. He has a felony charge or something, so now he can't run for president. That's got to be false, right? It can't be true.
Yes, that's false.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I don't believe there's anything, again, this has been taught. I don't know if you watch, which news outlet you watch, but I don't think there's anything out there that says he can't run anyway if he has a felony. I don't know of any law or statute that says he can't.
Now, if he's actually in prison, I'm assuming.
Yeah, correct.
He can't then, right? Yeah.
And he would have to be convicted of a felony anyway before. So
they're trying.
I don't think that's going to happen. But
it's nuts how they're trying. DeSantis has lost all of my. I don't know. He seems very bought and paid for all of a sudden. He was great during COVID. You know, I had a lot of faith in him. His clips online, he was something about how he handles himself in debates now and in interviews. He's lost a lot of my faith. He just seems too reserved and robotic. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never.
It
spent
was
my
like a
whole
switch.
life judging people. You know, that sounds bad, but as a law enforcement officer, you have to make a quick assessment. And I've gotten, it sounds vain or cocky, or I've gotten very good at making a quick assessment of people and being right. And for whatever reason, with that man,
I can't.
just off the first time I saw him, something about him. I don't know what it is. I want to like him.
I'm so disappointed that
But I
I
can't.
don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe that's. I wonder if that's not a like an operation. You know, they're trying to make us hate so we don't vote for him. I don't know. You know, you can dig into conspiracies about it. It's like, if I think about it, why don't I like him all of a sudden? And for the most part, it's because there's been these little clips going around and segments of him where they make him look super weird. You know, he's doing weird things with his mouth. He doesn't seem like he wants to stand up for any, like, I don't know. But it's if you think about it, it's all just little clips online that have been all of a sudden put out everywhere where it's like.
Well, so let me ask you this. So you watch the debates?
Some of them.
Okay.
I've watched portions. I can't.
So who shines?
In good faith.
Who shines too?
I hate to say it, but it's Vivek. You know, and I hate to
Because the way
say
he
it.
presents himself, though, right?
Well, it's because he's the closest thing to being and it seems like he's just taking like heat he's taking power from Trump's crowd. You know, he's trying to. It's like if Trump can't run or Trump doesn't win, vote for me. He's trying to be that guy. You know, he's trying to elbow up with Trump, be Trump's guy. He's trying. But there's something very strange about Vivek that he scares the hell out of me because he's involved in the pharmaceuticals and drug industry. That's where he made a lot of his money. You know, so I don't know. He's almost too good with his words.
He is great.
You know?
He's a great speaker.
It's like Obama when you listen to him. Yeah, he's real slick. You know, and he was even on Sean Ryan, right? He did an episode on the Sean Ryan show. And I trust Sean Ryan and I trust Sean Ryan's show that they're putting out honest stuff. Having Vivek on there gives Vivek to me a lot of credit, you know, that he was willing to go on and do a full length, whatever. That was hours long video or podcast that they did. So you're able to kind of see someone, you think, but because he's such a slick talker, he's so fast, and he's an incredibly rich guy.
Oh, for sure.
You know? So I don't know, man. I hate to say it. I hate so much to hear myself say this, but I feel like, dude, I don't know if I can say this. I don't know, a foreigner, you know, as the president of America just doesn't seem right to me. I can't wrap my dick around it. You remember when that Chinese dude was running for president? Was it the last time? Who was the Chinese guy?
He wanted to give everybody money. Was his thing too? Yeah.
Yeah, he had some great points. I think he was running for the Democratic Party. God, for the life of me, I can't remember his name. He wanted to help out truckers, right? He wanted to do all these things because automation was coming, you know, and he was going with that. But he was a Chinese guy. You know, there's a super distrust in foreign people running this country. It doesn't look right. Now, I'm not saying, it's got to be a white guy. I'm not saying it's got to be... Like, Barack Obama was great. He was a freaking Muslim, basically. Well, I think he was born in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, supposedly.
I don't know. It just... I don't know. I feel like we were talking about earlier, how shallow the American public is. Vivek... But maybe we're woke enough now, you know? Maybe the country's woke enough to where they'll vote for...
I think he's going to pull a lot of votes away from the... I mean, there's a lot of liberals out there right now that'll vote either way, which is good.
Right.
I think you should... I'm really over the party system, quite honestly. I think you need to vote for the best person and not along party lines, which is just getting ridiculous anyway. But, you know, initially when Robert Kennedy said he was running. I'm like, oh, I was all for him until I paid more attention to what he was saying. But, yeah, so.
You don't think we're getting Trojan horsed?
I don't think so.
I don't. Okay. I should say it this way. I don't
Not
think
with
the
Vivek, I
president.
don't think.
Yeah, it's hard for me to think that the president could be a Trojan horse. It's like that's almost too.
I would be more concerned with the president we have being a Trojan horse than
Yeah.
Vivek. But
It feels like it's too much of a scrutinized position in the country for anybody to risk. You know, it's like if Russia or China was to send someone over to our country to invade us, to infiltrate us, I feel like you would not have that person run for president, right?
Okay.
If you're a super sketchy individual with all of the corporations that are in America and everybody's constantly, we see how the president gets scrutinized. Every little detail of his life gets dug up and dragged through the mud. Why would you put someone who's not, why would you risk it? You know?
yeah, I don't know. You like to think an American's American, regardless of their race or nationality or all that. So I think that's the beauty of voting. Unfortunately, our voters are getting dumber every year, but that's the beauty of it, and that's why I get pissed off about term limits. We have great people, and I want to keep some of those great people, and I want to have the right to vote for them, and I don't have that right anymore. But I also want to have the right to vote for, like you're saying, the nationality, whoever. I want to vote for that person. I don't care about the rest of it, but
Yeah.
I do hear what you're saying. But.
You want the look of like, I know what you want for like in a president. You want the president to come out there, but he
He
looks
wants
like
to be Harrison Ford. That's
like
what he
Dan
wants.
Crenshaw, right? He's got the eye patch,
Dude,
and he looks like he's gonna whoop somebody's ass.
I'm sorry, but not sorry. Okay, if China had Trump for president, if Trump went over and ran in China, became the president of China, it would look very weird. It would look wrong. America needs. I'm not going to be racist here, but we need an American president, and he can't. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. He can't. We got to have some kind of faith, in our. I don't know. We don't have any faith in our president right now, right? He's an American president. He's all-blooded. He's full-blooded.
Are we going to have faith in
American.
Trump, though?
I wouldn't have faith in Trump. Not 100%, but I think we need him right now
We do.
because of the wars that are going on everywhere.
Like I said earlier, the foreign policy, yes. But I just wish we had. I just wish somebody that was running, whether it was Democratic or Republican, that had the wow factor. That really, and it's just not there. It's absolutely nobody standing on that Republican stage wows me, or even interests me for that matter. A couple of them downright scare me, and then you have Joe Biden on the other side, which we are all terrified of. That man scares me more than anybody.
He scares me, and he doesn't. Whoever's behind him should scare the hell out of us.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he even knows where he is 90% of the time.
The guy you need is the guy that's looking at it like, I'm not going in there.
Here's the thing: when we talk about Trump, yeah, you're right. When we talk about Trump, and we talk about how great he might have been or how great he might be and all this, right? Someone made I was watching Pat Bet David. He's got a podcast on YouTube. It's called Valuetainment.
Mm-hmm.
Super smart guy, right? Patrick Bet David was interviewing this woman, and I cannot for the life of me, because I suck at this, I can't remember her name, but she made an interesting point. She was a huge Trump supporter. She was one of the people who apparently helped Trump get into office. She was a part of his staff or his advisors or whatever. She made an interesting point. She said Trump ran on build the wall, right? Mm-hmm. Build the wall. That was our thing. We're going to make our country safe. And right now, for instance, just for example, our border is the worst that it's ever been. But Trump ran on this thing, build the wall, build the wall. And he had 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he never built it.
Well,
She said it would have been very simple for Trump to make the wall if he really wanted to.
And I'm not a Trump supporter, but like I said, I like some of the things he did, most not. But he was building the wall. I mean, there's a good chunk of wall down there that's being built, and there's a lot of parts for the wall that was supposed to continue on. In fact, that was being built locally by a company
Heard about that.
locally here, and it's just sitting there rusting now, and I'm not gonna be able to use it. But
I think Biden changed his stance on that too recently, didn't he?
yeah,
Just all of a sudden now he changed his mind. He's
And,
like, maybe we should build the wall.
and we're finally starting to, I spent the last couple of years just kind of being, I don't know, I just didn't want to accept it, I guess. I didn't think it was going to affect us up here. I didn't think people were going to come up here in big numbers, and who wants to come to North Dakota, right? So I really didn't think it was going to hit us hard, or at least they weren't going to come up here in buses and things. So we have calls every summer because we have a big transient population in Stark County in the summertime because of the oil field and concrete work and other things. So we get calls every year, people concerned when they see some Hispanic people running around. They're, oh God, the alarms go off. Oh, okay, no, they're working for this company or this company. They're fine. We checked it out. Well, this summer is the first time that legitimately we're seeing Venezuelan families coming up into our community. And, I know of 3 or 4 that I've seen legitimately that I can say came up here from the border. So if I've seen 3 or 4, there's probably 30 or 40 or who knows. So now we're actually seeing that happen. And I don't want to alarm anybody, and certainly it's not to that point where the alarms need to go off, but just so people know in our community now we are seeing that. So
I think that's a huge problem,
yeah.
and I hate it.
I mean, at least I think it's better, at least if they're with their family versus like the border thing. They're saying there's a lot of guys coming up, and it's like, well, where are their families?
We
Well,
think
right.
they're with their families, right? But a lot of these people
they
are
got
known to
women and
kidnap children.
Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
guess.
and maybe you're seeing in a terrorist situation, he's probably going to come with a family because he wants to look normal, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not saying they're terrorists up here, but you know what I mean. But we are seeing a lot of, just single males as well. But again, we don't know if that's part of the transient workforce or if it's tied to this Venezuelan thing we're seeing. But the problem is up here, we don't have the services for that. We don't have, if you're not coming up here to work or you don't have that lined up by the time you get here, we don't have places for you to go and services for you. And
Even if you're coming to work, right? You're coming illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem just in itself.
Wow.
And the issue that I think a lot of people are seeing, right, is that they're not coming anymore under the asylum laws, right? Which means you're fleeing from extreme persecution and violence. They're just coming when they go and interview some of these people, they're saying, I just want a better life and I just want this and I want that, and you can no longer apply under these asylum laws to just come over, and just walk across the border.
Ukrainians can, but
Can they? Well, yeah, Ukrainians can. Maybe someone from Israel. I don't know how that. But the people that are coming, they're just flooding in right now. Elon Musk just went to the border. I don't know if you guys saw that video, but just recently he went and did a live stream at, where the hell was it? I wrote it down. He went to Eagle Pass border in Texas, right? He talked to the guy who's the congressman of that district, who's Tony Gonzalez. He went there, did this live stream, talked to them. Essentially, they're bringing in, just at this one, now there's, I guess, 9 of these specific districts all around the country, and they were saying at this one spot, they're seeing, on average, 2,500 migrants per day, and the number just keeps increasing. They're seeing those people come through. And Elon Musk asked him, he said, how many of the people are you turning back around and sending home? He said 0. And Elon Musk made a great point. He said there are roughly 8 billion people on the planet Earth. And he said the United States has an open border to 8 billion people essentially right now. And we're advertising it. one of the things I hated, and why I even hate talking about this a lot, is because I feel like we're advertising it. Everybody keeps saying it. Oh, our border's open, right? Even Vivek went to the Canadian border just recently, and he made this video, which was almost suspicious to me why he did that, right? Because he made this video showing how you can go up from Canada, right? You come to the border, and they stop you. And he said, he goes, if you look over here, and him and this camera crew, they walk to this little trail. He's like, it's right here next to the border. They show the trail. He's like, there's a nice sign. And then he walks with his whole camera crew. He's like, we can just walk through here. They go down this little clearing. And he said, now you can cross over into the United States. I was pissed. I was like, why would you show that? With your platform, what was the point of you doing that video?
True, but people know that. I mean, that's not a secret.
Right. They know, but it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
What really concerned me more than anything is, we see those pictures of those guys parachuting into Israel.
Oh, man.
I mean, if they're willing to do that, you don't think they're going to come wander across our border? And the United States is full of people just waiting. And I was convinced, and I still think it's coming, that when Biden said we're supporting Israel 100%, now they're going to send all that money there. These terrorist cells are just waiting for that. And
We got a lot of Palestinians in the U.S. already. Yeah.
and they're going to pull that trigger here pretty soon. And I think it's going to be bad news bears real soon. But
yeah, the low key, because Israel is supposedly they have the greatest intelligence. Their force, the IDF, they have the greatest intelligence. Apparently,
You got the Israeli Mossad, right?
well, and look at what happened. So now we have this disclaimer coming out a couple days ago, telling Americans to not travel outside the United States. We have this thing on our cell phone.
I saw that alert. Right.
All of a sudden, we're gearing up for something here, and obviously, as ignorant as this administration is that we have in the United States, they're smart enough to see something's going to happen. I mean, and it is. And what really interests me is I sat through an intelligence meeting about 2 years ago with a gal who's originally from Pakistan. So she understands Middle East philosophy, and she really enlightened us on a lot of things. And this was at a conference I was down at South Dakota. And she said at that conference, number one, she started off like, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't support either one, but I'll tell you that this administration has zero respect across the world. Zero respect for foreign policy, right? So they think we're the laughingstock of the world, the Biden administration. She said, say what you want about Donald Trump, and I'm not a fan. He understood foreign policy. You kill one of our soldiers, we kill one of your lieutenants. You kill one of our hostages, we kill somebody higher up. And that's things they get. And, he kind of led with an iron fist when it came to the rest of the world. And she said, mark my word, within 2 years, you're going to have major issues going on in the world, and you will have terrorist attacks at home here.
Ugh.
And she called it right on the button. I mean, it was about 2 years ago. So,
Damn it. That's not something that I want.
Well, like I
Right?
said, the border stuff too. I watched an interview. The guy interviewed, and he asked these guys where they were from, and it was all just male guys in their like 30s, 20s, 30s. Like guys could be soldiers, and they were all. He asked where they were all from. There's like 15 to 20, and they're all Syrian. And he asked where they're going. One guy, New York. They're all going to major like city hubs: Chicago, New York, California, Los Angeles. And he asked each one of them where they're going, and they each told him where they were going, and they're all like Syrians. So,
Yeah,
So
it's
there's
terrible.
not just the Venezuelans or the any Hispanics coming over. It's everybody.
well, I don't think you're going to see a replay. You're not going to see them hijacking planes and crashing into. I think they're going to. You look at the Middle East and Syria and places like that. They attack children. They attack schools. Like they just did in Israel. Basically, they will hit you where it hurts the most, and that's coming into your homes, and that's attacking you at your schools and things like that. And that's what we really need to be you need to have some urgency about that and be prepared for that kind of attack.
Oh my gosh. I don't like to fearmonger, but I don't think we're doing that anymore at this point. I think this is a legitimate problem, and we should be scared. We should be a little not scared. We should be worried. So we should be really worried about this. I watched the mayor of or the whoever the governor of Arkansas. It's a woman. Cannot remember her name, but she just I think it was today or yesterday. They just put through a law because they have this massive Chinese company in the state of Arkansas that owns 150 something acres of land, and they're doing research on seeds and all this, right? And she just went through and passed this bill saying that company has to get the hell out of Arkansas, whether they're going to give up the land or whatever they're going to do. And if they don't, we're going to fine them. It's like up to 20% of the value of the land they can fine them, you know, until they can get them out. She also passed some bill that it bans using the language pregnant person. She's doing some crazy stuff, right? But at least she's taking some steps, right? And a lot of states, it's like New York. The fact that the governor of New York wanted residents at one point to start housing migrants in their homes, that should just tell you how insane this is.
Yeah.
And to say that the United States is, we're so great, we're such a powerful nation, and if anything happens, we'll deal, like we're letting in these few migrants. No, by the way, when Elon Musk did his visit to Eagle Pass, you know, the conclusion that they reached number-wise of illegals coming into the country every year is somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 million people right now throughout all of the districts where they're able to come in. And these people are riding on trains. One of the things that they said was these people are riding in on trains, on our trains, coming in. They hit the handbrake on the train. They know how to stop the train. They're able to hit whatever. The conductor has to stop the train or the guy running the train. And then a bunch of people who are there to pick them up will show up in usually stolen vehicles from the United States. Other illegals will show up and pick these people up and take them off, you know? So this is an out of control situation.
Well, it's becoming human trafficking. It really is.
It's an invasion. We're being invaded, right?
But just so I don't know if you guys are aware, but North Dakota passed that same law where there was a Chinese company trying to set up next to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. That spurred North Dakota to institute that same law that you're talking about.
I love that. That's how
they took a lot.
how it should be handled.
Yeah, they're taking a lot of land back from other countries, basically, right? That they even have purchased already.
Yeah. And people who say, "Oh, this is racist. You're being hateful. Whatever." Okay, call us hateful.
Like the United States come into your country and buy up all your land.
Yeah, look what happened. Look what happened in that little town in California where they just found that COVID lab that was owned by the Chinese, where they were doing experiments on mice. They had all the diseases in this lab. I don't know if anybody's heard about that.
I watched that thing. They broke into there.
There was a very rundown building in this small town in California. Of course, that didn't make the news, right? But they found this crazy COVID lab there.
Well,
with all the tests,
malaria and everything.
They had all the diseases.
Well, it's funny that's on the West Coast because everything blows east, right?
Isn't it weird?
North and east, so that would have been.
Oh yeah,
get that stuff out everywhere.
And we, the United States, sit here so proudly when this whole attack that happened in Israel just recently. They came, like you said, they came across in paragliders, right? They stayed super low key. Someone said what they did was for a period of like 2 years, the Hamas over in Gaza, they kind of just lulled, you know, they lured Israel into thinking, oh, we're not going to fight. We're trying to make peace. We're trying to do this. But meanwhile, they were going under in these tunnels that they have under
it's
Gaza.
It's scary how patient these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
It's...
And like, how arrogant is it of us to think that the same thing couldn't happen over here?
It is happening. Right
what
now.
do you think? If I was, and see, I hate to put stuff like this out on the internet, but nobody's going to watch my podcast, right? But what do you think? Like, we say, oh, they're going to come over here. What would all these people possibly do There was a video. What's the dude's name? Does anybody know? I'm gonna freaking screw this up. Dennis Quaid, I think.
Like the actor?
Yeah, the actor, Dennis
Okay.
Quaid. He is a part of a documentary, which I hate myself for saying this, but I didn't watch it. But he's a part of a documentary about the weakness in our country from our electrical grid, right?
Yep,
So he
I've
did this
seen that.
entire documentary about it. I've been meaning to watch it, but I haven't. But I watched an interview that he did where he was talking to a guy, some news channel about it, and he was talking about how weak, it would just take a few. It would take a few simple, we think, oh, a power line goes out, it just here something happens, an electrical strike.
Someone's going to fix it, right?
Right. Okay, but let's say all these people that are coming over, we think, oh, they might go and attack schools, they might go and attack hospitals, whatever. What if they are going after our electrical grid?
Well,
wouldn't
like I
that
said,
be the
I
thing to hit?
I think you're going to see some unprecedented things, and that's probably one of them. And my biggest concern is we're looking at the wintertime. Like, if they're smart,
That scares
hopefully
me.
they're not listening to us. But
Right.
they're
Hopefully
not
they're
dumb.
not
They already got this
listening to
figured out.
this.
But
That scares the
it's
hell
gonna be
out of
the
me.
wintertime, and that's when you're going to see the most casualties. And
Yeah, and he had the balls on one of our other podcasts to say, "Oh, you just light a fire in your home, you'll be fine." Remember we were talking about that, Skis?
Well, you got to do what you got to do, right? You're either going to survive or you're not. That's what it comes down to.
Dude, when I was driving here, I don't want to keep you too long. I don't know when you got to go or what, but when I was driving here, so I drove here. My drive is 4 hours, right, going down the interstate to get back here for the weekend. And I was listening to this Gaza, Israel stuff, Of course, and you just have time to think. You're in the vehicle. You're just driving. I'm looking up at the sky. I'm like, dude, if I saw a paraglider up there, like if I saw people or a roadblock up ahead, I'm thinking to myself, what? Because I watched the footage of the people that were at the festival, and they all tried to get out and the roads were blocked and everybody's panicking and they're running. Nobody had guns. Right, so they're just ducks, and they're getting shot. They're freaking ducks in a barrel or whatever, and they're getting picked off. And I thought to myself, I had a .22 rifle in my vehicle as I was driving, and I was like, Sheriff Corey Lee's going to be on the podcast tomorrow. I've got some great questions to ask him, right? So we talked about this last time. This is a constitutional carry state, right?
don't just start shooting paragliders.
No,
Please.
I would never do that.
Unless you know they're bad guys.
Right.
You see them with guns, probably good choice.
How horrible of a sight would that be, first of all? Going down the interstate and you see a paraglider.
I don't think we're going to have that happen.
I'm sure, right. That's
There's
a
too
little
many guns here.
far-fetched. Yeah, that's a little far-fetched. But my thought was, roadblocks, what if you come up, the road's blocked off, and there's guys with guns up there, or whatever, right? Am I allowed in the state of North Dakota to carry an AR-15 loaded in my vehicle at all times? Now, here's the problem with that, right? I can see the issue from a law enforcement standpoint, where you're like, I don't want people driving around with AR-15s in their back seat, right? But
I disagree, but
you did okay. I love that. I felt very naked. I had my pistol with me, and I had a .22 rifle in the back that I was just playing. We were target practicing with, and I left it in there. That's not gonna stop a Hamas. It's not gonna stop anybody, right? You should have a rifle, like a real, with a nice caliber on it, right? So you can defend yourself. And obviously, like you said, you should know how to use it. But what are your thoughts on that? A rifle. I should have a rifle in my vehicle at all times.
well, I shouldn't say that. I have never been a huge AR-15 fan. I just haven't. I'm a shotgun guy. That's just me. But now I'm starting to see some trends in the world where okay, you know what, AR-15 is probably, there's a time and a place for it, absolutely. Along with many other guns that are out there, but because my shotgun ain't gonna reach up
Yeah.
where I need it to go. But like you said, as law enforcement officers, should we care that people are, riding around with AR-15? No, my stance will probably never change on this. if you're a felon and you're not supposed to have a gun, then hopefully you don't, and hopefully we catch you and remedy that situation as a law enforcement officer. But we're getting to the point in the world where, well, number one, there's just not enough cops out there. If something happens in our little town, I need all the help I can get. I need people that are going to be there and respond quickly, and hopefully that they do the right thing. You know, if a guy is fixing to walk into a school with a rifle slung over his shoulder and a bunch of ammunition, and there's just no cops in the area, and you're a parent sitting outside waiting for your kid or dropping your kid off, and you see this, and
You hope they stop.
yeah,
that guy,
hopefully
right?
they blast him.
Is there something in a situation like that? Let's say I was driving, and I've got my AR with me or my shotgun or whatever, and I see somebody going into a gas station with a gun, right? And I see him shoot, okay? So what is a great signal to a law enforcement officer? Let's say I'm just like, oh my God, I got to stop this. And I jump out and I got my gun. I've trained. I know how to use my weapon, right? I run in there and I shoot this person. Or, God forbid, I run in there, right? And I'm in the process of looking for this individual and cops show up. Okay, this is a horrible situation
so that's
for me.
the catch. Obviously,
22,
Right.
obviously, I'm going to tell you to go in and stop the threat before you take the time to call 911 or do that, because every second is a life.
Right.
Go in, stop the threat. If you think the threats are all gone, lay down your gun, call 911, and wait patiently. Almost every place has cameras now, so hopefully that wherever this happens, you're on camera somewhere. But in the instance you're talking about, yeah, that's scary. There's off-duty cops that get shot all the time doing that same thing because bigger cities, not all cops know each other,
Right.
so they roll up and Jim Bob's trying to take out this active shooter, and
Yeah,
ends
there's
up getting
two
shot
of
by
them
one
in
of
there.
his brothers. But that's the thing. You have to make that decision, and I would hope that.
Should you yell? I'm just trying to help. Like, what do you do?
Well, cops show up, you lay your gun down. You
But what if
you
the
get out of
guy
the fight.
comes around and he's right there? Cop. I mean, this is a crazy scenario,
Yeah.
right? It's
it could
probably
happen,
not
but
going to
yeah.
happen that way, but I don't know if there was like some sort of code word you scream out to police that they
Well, no,
know
then we
you're
couldn't
not
tell you anyway. Then the bad
Right.
guys would have it.
right. Oh man, that's a bad spot to be in. Yeah, know what you're doing, people. Think before you pull the trigger. Think before you pull your gun out. You better know what the hell you're doing. Oh man, I've heard some stories. People getting shot trying to help. And that's sad when it happens, but so yeah. In closing, what are we at? We're at an hour and 20.
Jeepers.
I know, I don't want to.
Well, let's talk about AI next time.
What do you know about AI?
No, I'm not getting on that. No.
You had said the last time you were on here, you had said, and I never asked you what your stance was when COVID came through about masks and all that. Because people I'm hearing now, COVID's ramping back up. Wear
Well,
your
you'll
mask.
have to go back and look at our Facebook page. So I was the first. I'm not patting my back. I'm just supporting my stance. I was the first sheriff in North Dakota to come out and say we're not going to enforce this. I got death threats. I got a lot of hate mail, but I got way more support than I did hate. I'll put that out there too. But basically, I said we're not going to cite people for not wearing masks. We're not going to
Got
make that a
bigger
crime.
problems.
That's ridiculous. That's stupid. That's not our place. I'm not going to force your kids to go to school to mask. Mask is worthless in school anyway. But in the same token, we have to support businesses. So if I own a business and you have to wear masks to come in my business, and if you don't, then you need to leave. Well, on that same token, we will go there and make those people leave because that's your business. That's your property, right? So, they have that. They have that the right to do that. So I wanted to make that clear, and I don't think I made that part clear enough in my video that I did. And I'll never do a video again. I'll tell you that because the national news took 15 seconds of my video and played the narrative that they wanted to play. So it made me look like an asshole. But It'll be a written document next time, basically stating this is what we're doing. But I've had visits with the school system in Dickinson here. I haven't so much in the county yet because I think they're going to be smart about this. But Dickinson said no way to the masks again. So they saw that it absolutely didn't work last time, and it just caused more problems than it did good. So I don't think we have to worry about that here. And we're definitely not. I mean, my stance hasn't changed. I'm not going to make anybody wear a mask, and I'm not going to enforce any of that. I had a word that I'm not going to use. It's a bad word, but nonsense. So
That's good to know. Everybody was saying, I remember at the time everybody was saying mask mandate, right? Legally, we don't have to follow mandates. I heard that all the time. Is that real?
yeah, a mandate's not a law.
So meaning I don't have to, if there's a mask mandate in the whole city, when I walk into Walmart, I still have to put my mask on if they say so, right?
Correct.
And then that's when you guys would, unfortunately, probably want to enforce that if Walmart's calling you saying, listen, we got people everywhere with no masks on, right?
But then you could just be like me and not patronize that business because if you're going to be dumb, I'm not going to come buy your products. But
Right. All right, before we watch this video, I want to tell a story about, it was like, I think last week, maybe, no, one of the last times I was freaking on my way. I was driving back to where I go in for the weeks. And dude, I come over this hill and there's this, all of a sudden, it's a bad situation when all of a sudden you see this huge line of cars on the interstate in both lanes. And then there's just one cop up there and he's just driving 74. And nobody wants to pass him. And it's this terrifying, gut-wrenching thing. We drove for so many miles, and I would see, we're all cheering for people to, like, go past him, you know? And everybody, you see one person, like, inch by. And he's like, please don't get me. And the guy goes, and we're like, yes, all right. So then everybody else starts creeping. One person had the balls to do it eventually, right? So everybody else starts creeping. We got to my turn, dude. And that's when you start thinking, like, are my tabs expired? All these thoughts start going through your head that you're like, I don't know if my tabs are current. You're like, but I'm next to this guy, right? Didn't want to look over at him. And he's driving this, those Suburbans are so intimidating, dude. It was like it had to be highway patrol. The Suburban, those things are so intimidating. He had the big front grill on the front, dude. I'm cruising up next to him. He's doing literally, why did they do that? Why would they do 74? He had to be doing 74.
he wants people to pass him.
Right.
He wants to check, not because he wants to pull him over for speeding, because he wants to check plates and tabs, and he wants to see there's things we do, if people won't make eye contact with you, there's all sorts of cues that you look for.
Would they prefer that we look over at him and wave
I'd
or
look at
something?
it and wave, like, hey, man,
Dude, I was scared to look.
I don't, but
I was like, I don't know if he's going to be pissed off. I'm just going to look straight ahead and drive.
but
I think I yawned.
that's an indicator.
Shit.
I hate doing that. Like if I see that line starting behind me, I'll pull off in an exit and let people
I feel like
back,
he
then I'll
enjoyed
go back
it.
on.
I felt like he was enjoying it.
Hey, he might
I
have
think
been.
if I was
Troopers
a cop,
do
I
that
would
stuff.
enjoy it.
No.
It's like, yeah, I'm going to do 74 and all you bastards. Well, here's the thing. I wonder, he probably wouldn't. Is he radar gunning as you're going by him too? Because like, if,
probably
let's say I go
radaring
by him at 77.
No, he's radaring the oncoming if he's radaring. But, typically I'll set it at 77 or 78. Then if someone blows by me, then we have a problem,
Right.
If I'm doing that little bit over the speed limit, then I would expect people to stay behind me,
Yeah. He definitely wasn't.
I'll slow way down and I'll let people because like I said, that line builds up behind you and it's not safe and it's...
It seems weird to me that people are afraid to go by. It's
funny.
like, what are you worried
It's
about
so
if you're
funny,
not doing
dude.
anything?
Exactly.
It is so hilarious watching people. We're all fine, right? He knows we're going faster than the speed limit because everybody comes up on him so fast, and then it's like, oh, the whole thing like backs up, and you're like, come on, guys.
And I don't know what it is. Ever since I got this black truck, I'm sure you guys have seen our black and orange vehicles.
Yeah.
I had a white one for years before. But ever since I switched to this black one, people do not see the sticker I got on the back of my
Dude.
tail. They come whipping up on me.
It's covert, man.
And then they get next to me, and of course they see, and then they slam on the brakes. And I mean, it happens all the time. Like, what about this truck? I can't. The light bar on top. Like, what are they not seeing?
It's camouflaged. We don't.
I don't know.
Everybody was
weird.
programmed to look for those white cop cars,
That might be it.
for so long. But I felt like I aged like a few years just trying to drive by this guy because I was like watching my speed. It's so stupid too because you're like, come on, just he's a human being. He knows what's going on here. Just go. Don't speed. Don't do 80 past him, but like get your shit together and just go. But he's obviously letting us go, but it's just hilarious to watch people like lock up and panic right there. It's funny. But that was a moment I had. I was like, dude, I gotta tell Corey Lee about this. This is ridiculous. I think you guys do it on purpose. I know I would. I'd be getting a laugh too. All right, so we're gonna have to put our headphones on for this video. So this is just. Let me preface this. I want to start recording my screen too. This won't take too long, but since you're here, I just want to get your opinion on this story, I guess. Okay, so this is the New York Times.
I saw this one. I think I saw this one.
Did you?
Yeah, I might have.
Why? Because I sent it to you?
No.
So the New York Times put out this story, and I saw it the other day. And the title of the post that they put up was "Exonerated Man who spent 16 years in prison on wrongful conviction shot dead by Georgia deputy during traffic stop." So this man, his name was Leonard. I don't know if it's Leonard. I think it's Leonard. Leonard Cure. Right? This shooting happened this Monday, the 16th of this week, right? So this guy, I just want to read to you. First of all, here's how they started, right? They say a black man who served more than 16 years in prison on a wrongful armed robbery conviction was shot dead by a sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop in Georgia as he was driving to visit his mother. So, let's see. Yeah, so I think I already said they said he was wrongfully convicted, right? So apparently, let's see. I want to read what exactly he did. So Cure was convicted of a 2003 armed robbery of a Walgreens pharmacy in Diana Beach, Florida. His conviction came from a second jury after the first one deadlocked. Cure was sentenced to life in prison because he had previous convictions for robbery and other crimes. In December 2019, Cure asked a newly created Broward State Attorney's Office Conviction Review Unit to reinvestigate his case, based on evidence and questions about how he was identified as a suspect in the robbery. A few months later, the review unit petitioned a judge to release Cure from prison, saying it unearthed troubling revelations that the man had solid alibis that were previously ignored and no physical evidence of credible witnesses to put him at the scene. So this guy went to prison. I think he got locked up in 2003, and he got out in 2019. So he was in jail for quite a while. Apparently it was wrongful. He got out. He received $817,000. And he was, I guess, trying to live his life, right? But he gets pulled over in Georgia. He was driving through Georgia. He gets pulled over. The cops said he was doing, I think, 90 in a 70 or a 75. I think it was 90 and a 70 is what the cop said he was doing. That's why the cop pulled him over. And I'm going to show you the dash cam footage. So I'm going to pull this up. Let me know if you can see that.
Yep.
All right, let's just play this. So this is, he goes flying by the cop. I skipped just a head pass when he flies by the cop. Cop pulls him over. This is how this goes.
Step out! Step out! Get out!
You hear that?
Get out! Put your hands back here.
I ain't doing shit.
Put your damn hands back here.
Who are you?
Staff Sergeant Alder's Sheriff's Office.
My name is Al Wade.
I don't care. Step to the rear of this vehicle.
In the name of who?
In the name of the law of the state of Georgia. Step back here now or you're getting tased.
I'm going. Watch me now.
Put your hands on the back of that truck.
Do you see that?
Put your hands on the back of that truck.
The back of the truck.
Both hands. Turn around. 34, can you send me another unit? One non-compliant.
Your name is Officer who?
Staff Sergeant Aldridge with the Camden County Sheriff's Office.
Who county?
Camden County. Put your hand behind your back.
Do I have a warrant? Wait. No. Excuse me.
Either put your hands behind your back or you're getting tased. I'm telling you that right now.
Why am I getting tased?
Because you are under arrest for speeding and reckless driving.
I'm not driving. Nobody was hurt. How was I speeding?
You passed me doing 100 miles an hour.
Okay, so that's a speeding ticket, right?
Sir, tickets in the state of Georgia are criminal offenses.
I don't have a ticket in Georgia.
You do now.
Why?
You passed me doing 100 miles an hour.
Offense and what? Am I going
Hands
to jail?
behind your back. Yes, you are going to jail. Hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Yep. Yep. Stay down. Stay down.
Okay. So obviously that last portion, I'm not gonna play on YouTube because I'll have to like you guys will I'll let them hear the audio of that. So one of the things I want to point out, first of all, I think that looked fine to me what the officer did, right? Okay, everybody was talking about this video, and that's why I wanted to get your opinion on it. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that stood out to me was he said a speeding ticket is like a criminal offense or something in the state of Georgia, something like that, where basically a speeding ticket gets you arrested. It's kind of what it sounded like.
Well, probably under the reckless driving portion, I think is what he mentioned, but that's not okay with me. I mean, that's not how we operate here. But, when he gets to the point where he actually shoots the guy, obviously it is what it is at that point. I don't think it should have gotten to that point.
Right.
Why he went up there and escalated. And that's what we talk about all the time. And I spent my career doing this. I don't care if you just robbed a bank. I'm going to try to talk you into handcuffs. I don't want to fight, especially now. I'm 46 years old. I don't want to fight with anybody anymore. I've been fighting with dogs for 25 years.
Yeah.
We don't operate like that. When you go up and you are basic, not combative, but you're starting the confrontation right away and you're escalating things.
Yeah, he was really aggressive out of the door for a speeding ticket. But when you add on like reckless driving, like for instance, the cop said in his official statement, I think he said he was doing 90 and a 70. But in the video, he said, you were doing 100 miles an hour, right? And the guy didn't say, no, I wasn't, right? He said, yeah, so that's a ticket. So he must have been driving extremely fast, right? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, that doesn't warrant you getting shot and killed. And he did die over this, right? And so people were up in arms. People were freaking out because the New York Post had put out this title, which is a little clickbaity, but it's true, right? He did serve 16 years in prison. Mm-hmm. It was apparently a wrongful conviction. So this guy, you say, why didn't you just listen?
Well,
why didn't you just get arrested?
And that's what bothers me with today's society is we don't. We expect people to run their mouth and be combative and whatever with law enforcement. But with that being said, this law enforcement officer, maybe, I don't want to say he started it, but
He didn't help.
No. And had he gone up and been pleasant and fine, and then all of a sudden the guy starts resisting, and what we saw happens, people aren't going to be up in arms over that.
Right.
And that's our job as law enforcement officers, is to be professional, especially in today's world, because we can't have shit like that. That's bad.
Yeah, that was a crazy scenario, you know?
Is it normal for them to ask them to step out of the vehicle for like a speeding ticket?
In Georgia,
Well,
apparently.
if he
I
has
was
a-
just curious. I didn't know if
Okay.
that's something you would do normally.
That's a great question, Skis. And you know what? Being the detective that I am, I went to a website called Georgia Speeding Laws. It's actually called DUIGuru.com. But I looked up Georgia speeding laws, and on this website, they also post a lot of the speeding laws in the state of Georgia and, you know, what you get, right? So this is one of the things that it says here. There's a thing in Georgia called a super speeder. And it says, beginning in 2009, Georgia has an additional penalty for speeding drivers. Regardless of the fines and fees and other penalties imposed by a local court, the state of Georgia will impose and collect a fee of $200 for any driver who is convicted of driving at a speed of 85 miles per hour on a roadway or highway, of who is convicted of driving at a speed of 75 miles per, or who is, wait, what? If you're driving 85 miles per hour or more, basically, you know, you can get this crazy fine. That's all it says about speeding. So then I went down and I pulled up, because a lot of people will go on here. This is basically like a legal website, too, where this lawyer will respond to people who are getting these crazy speeding tickets in Georgia, right? So I'm just going to read you 3 of these, right? Caitlin posted on June 11th, 2020. She says, I just got a ticket in Gwyneth for going 71 in a 45, which is crazy, right? That would be considered reckless driving, right? 71 in a 45, you think?
It could, but not.
Right.
It wouldn't be typical for us
Maybe
to do
not.
that.
Okay. So she says, this is my first ticket, so I'm not sure of what to expect, right? Blah, 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 blah. But she just got a ticket, okay? This second person, Abel, he says, hi, Sean, just received a citation in Dooley County for going 84 in a 70, right? He has a California license. He just gets a ticket, right? He's asking, so should I pay it instead of hiring someone, you know, to fight the case, all this, right? All these people are posting. This person says, I was pulled over coming out of something, Georgia, in between a 45 and 55 sign. By the time I was stopped, I was in the 55 zone. The officer cited me for doing 71 in a 45. But all these people are getting tickets, right? They're not getting arrested for these
Well, the
speeding
officer made the
infractions.
comment when he first went up there. He was reckless driving.
He did say reckless
And,
driving.
you know, reckless driving is a misdemeanor in North Dakota, so you know, not a felony.
So I
Obviously the laws are different there, but we can arrest for that if we want to.
right.
And he obviously felt that he was posing a danger to the rest of the motoring public, so that's all fine. I mean, I don't have any issues with any of that, but it was just his behavior. That was not professional. He ran into the wrong dude, and he shouldn't be acting like that anyway. But this guy being in prison for 16 years, you know, somebody comes up to you,
Right.
making conflict like that, you're not going to handle that well if you just got out of prison because that's a fight. In prison, you're going to fight.
But
So-
you would also think you've just been in prison for 16 years. How do you not know how officers handle themselves?
Well,
You think you're going to win the fight with the officer after you've been in
yes.
prison for 16 years?
in the officer's defense or whatever, the guy should have complied. Certainly, any one of us would just comply and be like, "Hey, calm down, man. What the hell?
Right.
I was speeding. Sorry."
Yeah, and I don't want to be cold, right? Okay, This guy served 16 years in prison on a wrongful conviction charge. The officer's screaming at him, yelling at him. He just wasn't having it, right?
Yeah.
It's just there were so many things that went wrong in this video.
Well, that's the thing too. They only play did he have to follow? Did he have to chase him down for a while? They didn't show that.
No,
they just
I
show
can
him when
play
he
you
gets
the
out of
beginning.
the truck.
I'll play the beginning if you want to see it.
No, they didn't show him from when he first pulled him.
Yeah,
over,
they
right?
showed him
they did?
just flying past him. I'll just show you. It's only like 30 seconds in. Wait, this isn't the right video. Sorry. It's this one right here. This one here.
Because I could see that too, where it's
But yeah.
like if you're like fleeing from them and not pulling
Well, and that's
over
the
right
problem with the news all the time is they don't show the whole story.
Right. And I don't know if he was speeding or not, but I know I saw the pickup. Oh, that's the pickup right there already.
Oh, he's
So I think
definitely-
he just goes by over here. You'll see him in a second.
He's definitely cruising. You could tell by the last frame there.
Yeah, and there's no audio on this, so
Yeah, the audio doesn't kick on until you turn our lights on.
okay. So yeah, he goes by. So that's how quick he goes by him, right?
Wowza.
So that's it. Now he pulls him over. I don't believe the guy ran.
Okay, I was just curious. I didn't
Yeah.
see that part.
So
of
he
it.
catches up to him, pulls him over. So I'm just gonna just to make sure that I'm not being an idiot, I'm just gonna watch and make sure the guy pulls over.
Lights are on.
So yeah, lights
Stop
are
him.
on. He's still going the same speed, it seems like to me, that he was going when the officer.
Well, he's just trying to get over now.
Right. Okay. So he is doing a little bit of reckless driving. I apologize. I should have played this portion. I didn't watch this. I mean, but I just kind of skimmed through it.
Well, he could easily pull over to
So
the...
he is reckless. He's kind of running at this point, isn't he?
Well, he could have pulled over to the left side of the road, so I don't know.
Yeah. So he kept going for a while after the lights came on.
I still wouldn't be... It wouldn't be enough to get me...
So he fired
Jacked
up.
up.
Yeah, apparently this officer, he fired him up by doing that, right? So the officer gets out screaming. So that's, okay, good idea to play that. I apologize for not playing that, everybody. But that's it, right? So that's a minute and 30 of him, or minute 15 or whatever of him not really pulling over, I guess, right away. And he was going pretty quick.
I guess had that been our department, and I probably shouldn't go there, but had that been our department, I certainly don't see anything criminal there by the officer, but I don't know that person would be working with us anymore.
There's that, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. In Georgia, they're pretty janky in Georgia, I think. Those officers down there, man, they don't give you listen. I don't know.
Well, and they deal with a lot more violent stuff than we do, so there's
Right.
no doubt. But
I'm sure. So I guess just to let everybody know the full story, if you see the article, like the New York Times put out their article where it just says, exonerated man who spent 16. Okay, but they didn't say that he I don't know if he was trying to kill the cop. I don't know. He attacked the cop. He did get tased, and then he turned around and started attacking the cop. Like, it's what do you want the guy to do? The cop took out his baton. You saw he tried the taser. Taser didn't work. When the guy was choking him, he whipped out his little stick. Tried whatever. That wasn't working. He was getting choked. The guy had him by the neck.
at what point did he tase him again?
He tased
what
him?
was the catalyst for the tasing?
That I'll show you.
He
right
moved. I know that because he pointed up or put his arm up after he's supposed to keep his hands on the vehicle.
Yeah, I'll
'Cause I
show
think
you
is
right
when he
here.
did that.
So this is when he tased him.
'Cause he said he would tase him if he didn't
Right.
comply.
Hurt? How was I speeding?
You passed me doing 100 miles an hour.
Okay, so that's a speeding ticket, right?
Sir, tickets in the state of Georgia are criminal offenses.
I don't have a ticket in Georgia.
You do now.
Why?
You passed me doing 100 miles an
Criminal
hour.
offense and what? Am I going
Hands
to jail?
behind your back. Yes, you are going to jail.
So that's where he
Hands behind
tased
your
him.
back.
He said, "Hands behind your back." The guy said,
Put
"No."
your hands behind your back.
Then he tased him, and then he kung fu's him. So now they're fighting. Taser's down. The guy's grabbing the cop's neck.
He said he was choking him.
Good way to
Cop-
get killed there going out in traffic.
Yeah. Cop pulls out his baton or his little stick, tries to do something. Nothing's working. Then he pulls out his gun with the other hand and shoots him, I guess.
Sit down.
Right in the stomach.
Sit down.
So,
Sit down.
yeah. So what do you think? So he tased him. He says, "Put your hands behind your back." He gave him one command, I think. He only said it once. He said, "Put your hands behind your back." The guy said no. Then he tased him And nothing happened, apparently, which is weird, because have you been tasered?
Yes. I would guess that both the probes didn't hit.
Okay, yeah.
Or they hit close together. So the way a taser works with the probes, the further apart the probes are, the worse you get it. Because electricity is going from here to here.
Okay.
That's what makes your muscles lock up. If I get you from here to here, you're just getting, which hurts like hell, but it's not going to drop you. And as close as he was, those probes weren't very far apart if he got hit him with both. So it wasn't incapacitate him by any means.
Turn the juice up.
The other, you can't turn the juice up. Other question I would have is, how far away is your backup? You know, you're really pushing this issue with this guy.
Yeah, man. Both of them were wrong. I think the cop was, he couldn't let the guy take his gun and shoot him, right? If you're being attacked,
when it got to that point, I have no.
Right. Cop's pretty free on that one, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's a good use of force. There's no doubt. And it looked like he was trying to grab his gun, and the way he was talking, you know, yeah, whatever.
Right.
But I just don't think it should have got to that point. I think if he would have.
Yeah, he was pretty angry.
I think if he would have respected the guy, the officer would have respected him, like he treated him like a human being. I don't think this happens, and that's the problem.
Yeah. And then I brought up the dude's background. Like, so we know this is not just a normal person. Like, this guy's been in prison for 16 years.
All right, and he
on false charges.
So he snaps after he gets pain, right? Officer goes for pain compliance. That's when the guy snaps. Well, if I come over there and punch you in the side of the head, you're going to get pissed and kick my butt, right? You know, because I caused you pain.
Yeah.
Whereas we could just be having a normal conversation. So that happens with a lot of people. If I cause you pain, you were going to react.
Right.
If you have that personality. You know, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to react and fight back, or you're going to comply. Well, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
The end, you know, it is what it is. But
it's a weird situation.
The beginning was not good.
Yeah.
I don't think that officer's going to have a job.
Yeah, I think if the New York Times has anything to say about it, because they're posting it up on their thing, you know, they made a nice little screenshot where he looks like he's pointing to the heavens. You know, they really played it out, right?
Well, and quite honestly, in that for our department, that would be a bad tase.
As close as he was?
No, just he's not. He's facing away. He's got one hand in the truck. He's got the other hand in the air. How is he a threat?
True.
To you at that point? And certainly, you know, there's things leading up to that where you could justify tasing him at that point, but he hasn't done anything. He's talking calmly. He's asking the officer questions. You know, it's the officer is the one creating the issue at that point.
Yeah, it seemed like he was a little maybe he had some nerves going on, and he was pissed at the same time. So it didn't seem like he even tried to grab him to cuff him, right? He just told him, "Put your hands behind your back."
Well,
the guy said no.
And quite honestly,
are you supposed to?
Well, you don't see that a lot. I don't know how to put this delicately, but it used to be when I was a kid, my dad's 6'4", 270, and he was a cop, okay? You know, that used to be cops back then were the big boys, and
they just grab you.
Grab you and beat your ass. Well, now we have a lot of females, we have a lot of different sized people in law enforcement, and so they're trying to get away from that, because if a little gal grabs this big dude, she's going to get thumped, right? So they want you to get some sort of control over them before you go to the cuffing, which... Yeah, but that's not a...
It's not a good look. It was a messy situation.
It's not a good tase in our world here. But
yeah. It's what happens, though. You know, it's...
Well, they teach officer presence and command presence, and, you know, so they teach us to get out and take control of the situation, but there was no reason for it at that point. He wasn't being non-compliant. He wasn't being an asshole. He wasn't doing anything until...
Could have just wrote him a $250, $300 ticket and let him go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that guy just wasn't doing anything to invoke that emotion from that officer. So,
yeah.
I mean, the driving before, I'd be a little agitated, but I'm not going to treat the guy like an asshole. There's no reason to.
Right. I'm happy that I'm not a police officer.
Well, it's getting harder and harder in today's world, but unfortunately, there's officers like this that make it more difficult for us. So,
Are you guys practicing jiu-jitsu, MMA at all?
some do, some don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that's it's something that's kind of starting to go around with police. They're trying to train them more of that, techniques and stuff to really.
I'm a big fan of that stuff, and most of my wrestling's been with dogs, but I've done things as far as, I don't know, you guys probably are too young to know who Dan Severn is, but back when
Sounds familiar.
when the UFC first started, he was like one of the major badasses. But he goes around the country and teaches some ground techniques for law enforcement and corrections and things. And I brought him in twice now to work with our people. So, I mean, I think it really helps to have that edge and learn things from actual fighters. And I think the edge I have is I grew up fighting. I mean, we fought every weekend we're rolling around with somebody, if it wasn't with each other, watching MMA and then beating the shit out of each other. But that really gives you an edge,
Right.
in law enforcement. And I think a lot of cops out there it's scary. I mean, a lot of haven't even been punched in the face in their life, and then they go out on the street, and then they never been in a real fight, and I think that's a lot of cops that are like this. They're scared of getting hit or being in a confrontation, and it causes problems. So that's why I like hiring people that I know were kind of shithead kids, and they snapped out of it, and they became. Yeah. So they make the best cops, and I was the same way. I was a shithead kid, and you have life experience, and you've been in fights, and you know,
Right.
and you're able to talk to people.
Yeah, that's
This guy does not have that.
He definitely. Well, not today. Everybody's got an off day, right? I hate saying things like that because everybody's like, oh, you're going to stand up, he just murdered somebody. But whatever, you watch the video with the rest of us. You could see what happened, okay? I can't stand up for either one of them, honestly.
No,
they both
I agree.
didn't handle it right.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have to deal with the consequences of that, unfortunately. Sucks. I'm glad we got your opinion on that, though.
Thank you for putting me on the spot. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, man. You've got the most expertise. So everybody, now that you don't have to look at this clickbaity stuff, always go and try to. That's the first thing I did when I saw that title from the New York Post. I went and immediately looked it up and tried to find the body cam footage or the dash cam or whatever, just to see what actually happened. Which is important. You got to know the full story,
Amen.
So, anything that you want to say before we close?
No, just thank you for having me again. Love you guys' show. It's been a treat both times, and
You're coming back, man. We've still got other things to talk
love
about.
to do it again. Love to do it again.
Absolutely.
I like these little surprises too. You catch me off guard.
Yeah, let's go. I've been enjoying doing that lately. We did it with Dana, too. I played a video at the end of the podcast. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got videos. They're floating here. Skis, Sheriff Corey Lee.
Thanks, brother.
Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
Peace.
What's cooler than that?
Well, keep it simple, stupid.